Good afternoon, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and we are here with another Two Average Guys recap show. We're talking Loki episode 2, and we're just gonna get it going. Chip, how you doing, sir? Chop and drop. Always see you. Thank you, bud, for coming here and being part of our live. And I'm not expecting a big crowd today, with it being Father's Day. This will be one of those episodes that gets caught a lot in the rewind. But I'd like to welcome my co-host on, Mike, Convex Mike. How you doing, bud?
Hey, how's it going? Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hopefully you're having a great day.
Nice mellow one, hopefully.
I know, right?
Not catching yourself on fire at the grill or anything. All right, so we'll get right into it. So Loki episode 2, I thought was a good continuation from episode 1, and I like the and I call this episode the fieldwork episode because this episode is a lot of exposition, a lot of dialogue, and I think this second episode will either continue people loving it or the people that just want action will be turned off. Go ahead.
I'll just say that I actually hope they go more like less action and more how they did this episode, because I felt like this episode was really good at that aspect, and they don't need to go all guns blazing, action packed. Like I think they should continue a little bit more of how they did this episode. Like I really liked it.
So did I. I really enjoyed it, and the reason I'm enjoying this series so much is the dialogue is so well written, and just Loki's interactions with everybody at the Time Variance Authority is great. And I like that in this episode, before we get into breaking down the parts, I like that we got more Ravana Renslayer. She's really good. I can't wait to see her get more active. Still loving my Hunter B15. She's been great. And her interactions with Loki and her no bullshit attitudes towards everything that he says and does. And of course, the strongest part is the Owen Wilson Loki relationship, which continues to be great, and you could see the frustration in this episode of the Mobius character with Loki. And he's not as smooth this episode. He's starting to snap back a little bit, and his patience is wearing down. But anyway, we get to our opening, and it's the 1985 Renaissance Festival. And I don't know, like I grew up during that time, and there seemed to be Renaissance festivals everywhere. I never went to one. It wasn't my thing.
I was born that year that they.
I'm sure they still do them, but you had that scene where again they just walk into a trap, and you see B20 get glamored by Loki, the variant Loki, and she takes out her whole team before the other Loki comes up and stabs the other guy. Then takes that Loki prisoner. Yeah, I mean takes that B20. Yeah, with her, and you're like, huh, why? So yeah, you find out later, but I thought that was like a nice opening because they're really establishing this variant Loki as quite the threat.
Yes. Oh, this variant was just straight to the point. Took him out quickly, and like I said, I like stuff like that. Like the whole build up in this episode is things that I really like.
And then you got the funny Miss Minutes scene with Loki, where he's asking if it's sentient, not sentient, if everything's recorded. It's a little bit of both. And yes, it is a Disney Plus series, Chop and Drop. But I thought the little interaction there, you kind of see Loki as an employee a little bit. He's got his uniform on.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a cute little interaction, but let you know through a bit of fun that Loki's actually learning about the Time Variance Authority. You know, he's learning the basics too, right? Like the destruction of the timeline and what's that means. And I think this show is heading towards that direction. I think when this show is done, the timeline's not going to be in order. That's why you have Doctor Strange called the Multiverse of Madness, I think. Because I think this series is setting up the destruction of the timeline that the timekeepers keep. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry. What was that? I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, so You know how Loki was sitting at the desk and he's learning about the destruction of the
Yeah,
timeline with there's too many variants and it goes past the red. And we already know that the new Doctor Strange movie is called In the Multiverse of Madness. So I think that this series could possibly be setting up the destruction of the timeline, and it's something that they have to deal with in the Doctor Strange movie. I didn't know if you were catching on to any of that or thought that was the direction it was going or not.
yeah. See, like I said, this whole thing, like I'm getting like a whole different vibe. I mean, it could lead into that. You know, like I said, I don't know the comics as well, so I just feel like it's gonna lead into something like more Loki, like his path, not into Doctor Strange path. I mean, of course they're probably gonna go that way, so I don't know, but I'm just like taking it all the information like little by little just to see what I can get.
Right. Well, and with everything being the multiverse, I kind of see it heading that way, but we'll see. And then, you see the team headed out for the other variant Loki. There's, they're heading there to capture it at the Renaissance Fair, and I still like that. Loki, Loki in the series kind of reminds me of Death from the second Bill and Ted movie, where he's looking to be validated all the time.
Yeah,
And LCS, how you doing?
get
So
there.
he's like, the obviously lesser Loki. He's always trying to make himself sound like the better version of himself. So he really reminds me of the death character in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in this episode.
Oh man,
Just
that's good. That's a good comparison right there. Yes,
right,
I that.
looking for validation in everything he says,
um,
and they learn about all the other Loki variants. That it's not just him and the other one. The Lokis are the biggest variants in the timeline. It shows all the different versions of Loki. And I thought that was kind of cool that Loki's always been a problem for the Time Variance
yeah,
Authority. But and then once they get to the Renaissance Fair, Loki's trying to play his own game to try to get before the Time Seekers. But the Mobius character calls him out on it. I listen good too. My ears are good too, whatever he said. And like that whole deflection that he was trying didn't work. His game. And Loki's learning that more and more his games aren't working with Mobius. Mobius is too smart. The other ones are too smart. Obviously, they've dealt with a bunch of other Lokis, so they know what to expect.
yeah. I don't know. I felt like Loki was like starting to get under his skin a little bit.
He
Like,
did a little, but in Loki fashion, he pushes it that one line too far. He
yeah,
goes for that one more ask, that one more big favor that alerts everybody to his scheme. And and then they reset the timeline, and then you go to the office where Mobius is meeting with Ravana, and I really like that scene too. Why do you get to keep all this stuff? And I'm the one who approves the missions, and you see that there's kind of like a
tension between them too.
yes, there's definitely a more than friends tension between those two, and it's great. And then when he looks at her pen, he goes, "Oh, it must be from your other favorites." But I thought it was a great scene, and it's setting up Ravana to be more of a player in the next couple episodes, I think. But she calls Loki's an evil, lying scourge, and that's his purpose in the timeline. So, she's kind of calling him out on how much he's trusting him, but he's not really trusting Loki. He's trusting Loki's nature.
Yeah,
Loki's insecurities and his need to be the best or be looked at like he's the best. So he gets one last chance with Loki in the field, Ravana tells him. And you got him and Loki talking outside the office. And Loki's trying to say, trying to BS him about that in the field. He's trying to give him all these different lines. And it's funny because if you notice the way they pictured Loki in that scene walking away, he was like the little kid catching up to the dad. So you got Owen Wilson's character in the foreground. You got Loki going back and forth like this, trying to get his attention.
wow, I didn't catch all that now.
Yeah, and that's what it looked like to me, like the little kid trying to get the father's approval, right? Trying to get out of trouble for something. And Loki's clearly.
It just goes back to Thor between how Loki felt between Odin and always having to be like Thor's like back foot.
Right. And then they even reference that later when Loki's like, oh, this is annoying. No wonder Thor hates it. I want that one of those seats. Uh, but I thought that was cool. And then he finally, this is where I was talking about earlier, where you finally see Mobius start to lose patience with him. He's calling Loki out in his bullshit. You know, he's like, you're here to help me catch the superior version of yourself. Once again, insulting Loki's ego. And he calls him an ice runt, you know, and, you know, I'll give you two scenarios. You know, I feel bad for this ice runt, or I just need to catch this guy.
Yeah.
And he's kind of just starting to lay all his cards on the table. He's really tired of playing the games with Loki, and he just wants to catch this person before any more of the Minutemen are murdered. What do you think about that whole conversation with them?
Oh no, like I explained, it just kind of brought back to like how Loki is Odin. They know he's always pushing it, and they just kind of like put him in his place and everything. And but now that he doesn't have someone there, like you know, with Thor always being like the rod between everything, he doesn't have that anymore. So he's just constantly pushing it, and Mobius just has to tell him just straight how it is. Like, look, you're only here for one thing. You're basically nothing. I'm just using you.
Right.
Or am I using you?
Well, and he kind of tells him that. He goes, you know, I'm just telling you whatever you need to hear. And I thought that was a great. Again, the strength of this episode is the dialogue. So then you got you having Loki do research, and hey Jerry, well thanks for stopping in, bud. We'll catch you on the rewind. Jerry's a great guy. I got a book going out to him to clean. So you got Loki doing the research, and you got that funny library scene where the one woman shushes him, and then Loki's ego can't take it. And it shows the little kid aspect of Loki when you can see he's irked, and he just turns out, he's like, shush, which I thought was really funny. And then, you know, he gets the only files he's allowed to have. And he meets up with, he finds that the variants hiding in apocalypses or doomsdays. And he's meeting with Mobius, and you find that he's not really that upset about what happened to Asgard. He's like, yes, very sad. But anyway, and you know,
it's terrible, but I laughed out loud on that part because I'm like, oh my god, he just doesn't care.
Right, he doesn't.
Softy, but he really doesn't care.
And then the whole thing with him ruining Mobius's salad, and I thought it was funny, and taken from the comic relief guy in the back. I forgot his name from last week, but he's funny. But you know, yeah, the salt and the salt and the pepper, and he pours the thing in the salad, and Mobius like, it's my lunch. But and then he's trying to convince Mobius to take him with him again. And you know, why would he calls him out on it, oh, you're gonna lower me in the field so you can stab me in the back. And Loki's like, oh, I would never do that. It's so boring. He's like, you've literally done it like 50 times. I've studied your whole life. But it's really funny. But then Loki comes on with a good line, right? You can trust me on one thing. I love to be right. And then you see them go back to Pompeii.
Yeah.
That was cool. And for a second, I didn't know what they were doing. Go back to 79 Pompeii. You know the volcano's going to erupt. You know the history. But then you as soon as Loki runs out there, you're already laughing. But Loki's there to make the point of what he said in their conversation, that if there's about to be a doomsday event, it doesn't matter what you do in that timeline leading up to those few minutes before the doomsday event. Everyone there is going to die. Nothing you do is going to make a difference.
Exactly, because there's not going to be a person that can be left alive to branch off into a different timeline.
Right, and I thought that was really really clever writing, because that's something new in time travel, in the time travel aspect. I haven't seen explored in any other type of movie or show. The whole you can do whatever you want before a doomsday event and it doesn't matter. because anyone that would know about it or carry it forward is dead.
True.
So, like, that was just when you think that something new can't be brought to something, they crack the nut and bring in something new with that, which I thought was really great. I thought it really made the time travel aspect a little bit fresher. But and then we're back at the TVA where him and Mobius are having another conversation, and we find out that Mobius loves jet skis. So I'm waiting to see him on a jet ski in one episode, because they didn't just throw that in there for nothing. You'll see him on a jet ski. At least I hope we do. And but then what I liked about that conversation is you got that great religious conversation out of it, right? When Loki's calling him, like, you really believe all that baloney? And then he calls Loki on his own baloney. And that if you think too much about existence and what you think creation is, it all sounds silly. And I thought that was just such a great conversation between the two with religion and just the silliness of people's beliefs in general. What did you think about that?
Well, like, after that conversation, they brought up the whole free will thing.
Yes.
And that, I always wondered that, like, for people who believe in time, like how the show is going, where, everything is always predetermined. Everything's going to happen in a timeline no matter what. So is free will really real? Or
right.
Is it a concept of time that is always going to happen? Like, even if you question it, your questioning it is meant to always go on. So watching them two go back and forth about, how everything is silly, like, is everything happening because it's meant to happen, or do they actually have the free will to keep?
And I think that's the meta part of this show, right? Because this show, Loki, is about Loki and his illusions, right? And then we're dealing with time and its free will and everything else in it, an illusion. If you have these three timekeepers constantly fixing the flow of time and putting it towards a set outcome, then there is no free will, right?
No, there's not.
Because you're not allowed to make any kind of decisions that branch off the timeline. Otherwise, they reset it.
Pretty much.
So,
but then
until you make the decision that they decide it's going.
Yeah. So I got a question. If free will is a real thing and your whole time is going on, then there's technically no way for branching, because if you have the free will, life is just going to branch out no matter what, that you cannot have a maintained flow of life. Like, there's no maintain of a timeline, because if you have free will to do whatever you want, then you cannot control time. So that's
right.
where I'm trying to, like, take all this in to understand, like, where are they going with all this?
Well, I think that's why we're going to see the timeline break, because you can only suppress. I think what they're going for is you can only suppress free will for so long.
Yes.
All those branching timelines are going to happen. And we already saw branching timelines in Endgame when the Hulk was talking to the Ancient One.
Yes.
And she was going like this, So
yeah.
There's free will out there. And right now, this Time Variance Authority, they picked Loki out in the first Avengers movie before all that time stream stuff was in Endgame. So there's a lot you're balancing here, right?
Yeah.
So, because in Endgame there was multiple timelines. The Ancient One was showing Bruce Banner that.
Yeah.
So, and you got to remember where this takes place, but this takes place over all times. Hey, Tyler. So I think that's a really cool concept, because right now it's about the supplementation of free will, how everything's on this set timeline.
Yeah.
And anything that diverges, they set a time bomb off and reset it, or they reset it. But again, this takes place before Loki ever died or got to Endgame. And in Endgame, there's already branching multiverse lines. So it's really cool. So I think we're going to see the setup of the multiverse in this series, and that they can't suppress the free will of everyone.
Yeah. See, this is why time travel is one of my favorite things to ever explore, no matter what what movie, like if there's a movie about time travel, I am watching it because I love all of them. I like seeing everybody's theory on how they're gonna do it, and that's why I'm very excited, like where they're going with this.
Right. And I love that this isn't an action based series. I love its dialogue and story based. We get our little action set pieces, but they're not big grand things that take you away from what the main story is. Everything in this series so far is feeding the story, and that's what I'm really enjoying about it. And then there's, when we were talking about that conversation that they're having, we protect what came before. The timekeepers untangle the epilogue from infinite branches, and we already know those branches are going to happen. Like I said, we saw the branches in Endgame. There's no way that by the time we get to the end of this series, the timeline's in place. There's no way. Yeah, I think the title of Doctor Strange alone, the Multiverse of Madness, I think gives that away. And then that illusion at the end, right? Well, when Loki asks him what happens once they write the epilogue, oh, we all meet at the end of time in peace and get along. Well, all right, at the end of time. But if it's the end of time and you're all living in peace, well, if you're still existing, there's still time, right?
True.
So I like that they're setting up all these little meta philosophies that are going on here. And then, Loki, again, with his insecurities. You called me a scared little boy. I called you a lot of things. And then Loki gives him that little bit of thing that he learned, no one bad is truly bad. No one good is truly good. And it's just going on and on. And with those two going back and forth with just great conversation. And the little boy thing is what clues Mobius on to the Kablooey, which they go find. And I was waiting for that to come back and play because, they didn't introduce that little pack of gum for no reason.
Yeah.
And I was like, Kablooey, I never heard of this. And now you find out why, because it's a gum from the future.
Yeah, what was it, 2050?
Between 2047 and 2050, 51.
51, yeah.
Yeah.
That's always something about time traveling movies. Like every time they go in the future, they always have to make it look too futuristic. I'm like, y'all need to stop that and make it look basic.
Well, I like what they did with the Time Variance Authority. Like they made it purposely so you can't tell what time period the Time Variance Authority's in. They're in all times. They have like 1960s equipment, but then when you look out, it's all very futuristic travel. But it also, some of those cars that are floating around have an old design to them. So it's like they've taken out of every time period to build the Time Variance Authority. So you're always getting a mix of everything. It really keeps you off balance as to where they're at. And I thought that was quite clever.
I didn't even notice any of that.
The more you know, Michael.
No.
So let's get back to Ravana, and he's there to get task force approval from her because Loki's figured out where the other variant Loki's hiding, all because of the Kablooey gum.
Yeah.
And they figure it out, and they're heading to Roxcart, that superstore, where there's going to be a Doomsday event happening. Yep, and then you get Hunter B-15 coming on the scene and still being a badass, taking the weapons out of Loki's hands, saying, never going to happen, and just totally busting Loki's balls again, which is always – I love the way Loki and Hunter B-15 get along. She just is so blunt with him, it makes me laugh every single time. And so they're in 2050, and they split them up in – Loki freaks them all out by using a little bit of magic to dry his clothes, and they think he's trying something.
Yeah.
And he has like a clever line. Well, I don't want to announce my approach by squeaking through the floors.
It's like she freaked out when he just did that. I was like, why'd you freaking out so? Well, something with magic that freaks him out.
Well, yeah, because it's uncontrollable. He doesn't have the time color on him, and they've dealt with, and we already learned they dealt with all these other Lokis. So, who knows how many troubles the other Lokis have put them through.
True.
But so you get Mobius and Loki split, and then Mobius isn't happy about it, and you finally get Mobius throw out a little barb of his own at B-15. Hey, try to hang on to your time collar this time, because Loki took it away from her, which I thought was a funny little go between those two. But then they meet this guy that's glamored by the other variant Loki, and you don't know he's glamored at first. Like, He's what hunting? He's buying his azaleas during whatever doomsday event it is, which I thought was funny. Like, yeah, that's what you would do. You'd be buying azaleas, and Loki's like, yeah, looks like probably me. But then as soon as B-15 goes to touch that guy, she gets the glamour passes to her.
Whammied.
Yeah, and these people just have no recollection of it. They're out after as soon as the Loki glamours them, their brains shut off. They don't know what's going on. And then it's just like this little like comedy and with heavy exposition back and forth between the two Lokis. He's trying to feel that Loki out while he's trying to keep his own plans in place to get with the timekeepers. And then you go back to Mobius and his team, and they find B-20, and B-20 is kind of off her rocker now from dealing with the other Loki, and she gave up how to reach the timekeepers.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hold on, let's do it.
Exchange I was confused on. I thought maybe I missed something, but
no, that's true. What LCS says a barrel of Lokis. Imagine dealing with a new Loki every few years. That would be exhausting. Yeah. It sure would. But like I said, so you had the feeling out conversation between the two Lokis. You learned that the other Loki doesn't want to rule the TVA like the Loki we know does, right? So I think, and then you kind of get to this Loki's big game plan when you see all the reset capsules that this Loki stolen all set up. And B-20 gave the timekeeper location away. And I love the swapping bodies and the one big hillbilly dude just beating Loki up over and over again. And Loki could beat him if he wants, but he's trying to get information. He's trying to make a deal, so he's letting himself be thrown around a little. And you finally get the face-to-face with the female Loki reveal. And this is kind of spoiled for everybody because just because of promotional stuff, pictures and all that, you all knew a female Loki was coming. Yeah. Plus all the comic speculators were already throwing that issue out there. You wouldn't have seen it, not being into the comics like you are.
Oh, but, no, I didn't see that coming. But after it happened, I actually looked it up to see, like, who she was and everything. So I was okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, and then you still don't know what she wants with our Loki, right? But she gives a little wave, like ta-ta, and goes through their time door. And then you got Mobius approaching Loki, and he takes off because he's what's his position at that point? And I don't think it's as simple as how they're making it in there. I don't think Loki's going to be on her side. I think he knows the only way he's going to survive is if he captures that Loki and he doesn't get erased and reset. And he definitely doesn't want to get reset. And he's also not gonna go with that Loki's agenda. Loki's ever only going to go with his agenda.
His own thing.
Right. That's the fault of all Lokis, right? But the time buff goes on. We got the various timelines being created, which look great. And I don't know if anyone else connected it to Endgame like I did, but as soon as I saw all those branching timelines, all I could think of, again, was Bruce Banner's meeting with the Ancient One in Endgame. When she was talking about all the branching timelines.
Yeah. So do you think that? Huh? Do you think she saw that happening?
Oh, she could have. She saw through all time, but she wouldn't talk about it. Who knows if she was part of the TVA, she's the Ancient One. And also... Well, you're low what?
I said if you're in control of time like that, you cannot talk about it because you can put in danger of messing up the timeline like that.
Right. And even talking about the timeline, I mean, Captain America himself put it in danger when he broke it and went back to live with Peggy Carter.
That's true.
So you got all these different time events set up, and I think a lot of this is going to keep going towards the destabilization of the timeline. And I think all this is going to culminate in the Doctor Strange movie and maybe beyond. Like this whole next phase might be dealing with the timeline. You never know, because that would be a perfect way to bring in Kang, who's one of the big Kang, he's one of the big villains that is already cast and announced, but Kang's all over the timeline. He's a time traveler.
All right.
And I think this is setting all that up because I think you'll see this dealt with in the Doctor Strange movie. I think you'll eventually see this dealt with when they bring in the Fantastic Four. And I think it's all leading towards that. But then the time bomb goes off. You flash back to the office again. And I really love this scene when you see Ravonna Renslayer arm up. And she just grabs her time stick and she's off. And I can't wait to see her in action in the next one. That actress has really been killing it for me. And I really loved her one episode in Black Mirror that she was in. I can't remember the name of it right now. It was the one where the two old ladies were traveling back to like the 1980s in time together, and they had the relationship. It was a really good episode.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was her.
Yeah, that was one of your episodes. Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, that's the one I told you to watch. It was so good.
Yeah.
God, what was you get the female Loki leaves in time. You have Mobius telling our Loki not to go, and you see him kind of waiting, and then he takes off. So, great big dialogue episode. Like you, I really enjoyed it, but really strong. What were your favorite strong points of this episode?
Tell you, I pretty much like anytime they mention the timeline. The Mobius and Loki interactions, like every time they were together on screen, I loved.
Right. Those two are, again, and this is going back to Marvel strengths again, their casting is amazing. Like the people they cast in their roles, like there's hardly any misses in their casting. If you want to go back to a miss, you'd probably have to go all the way back to Iron Man 1 as Terrence Howard. Because as soon as Don Cheadle came in, that character was so much better. Don Cheadle had so much more charisma in that role, and just fantastic stuff. But overall, I don't know. What would you rate this episode out of 5?
I'll give it a 4.5. I told you I was conflicted a little bit.
I'll give it a 4 or 5 as well. I think the strength of this episode, though, are is the dialogue. This is the heaviest story-driven series I think we've gotten so far from Marvel, at least the most tightly written one, and I hope the next 4 episodes continue that. And I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. I'm not really missing the action. I heard some people complain that there wasn't enough action. I didn't really notice it. I loved every second of this episode. I don't need the action. I need a good story.
Well, I say we've had enough action with the 20-something movies.
Right. It's okay to have a deeper episode. James Willie? Yeah, he's going to talk to us later. He hasn't watched the episode yet either. Everyone watched it. I didn't watch it till yesterday because it's been such a busy week.
Well, I watched it last night.
Yeah, so yeah, we both, and then I watched it again this morning to take my notes. Yeah, but overall, I think this is the first series that you and I have been mostly in agreement on every episode.
So far, I haven't gotten mad watching any of it.
No, it's all just been really good.
Yeah.
And, Tom Hiddleston, all the actors, Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and just, the actress for B20, the actress for Ravonna, they're all just playing their parts so well. It's so enjoyable. And like you, I can't wait to learn more about the time stream. And I really wonder if it's going to take us into Endgame again and show us more stuff about what happened in Endgame. Because they haven't mentioned the part where she was showing all the different timelines that were happening then. And I wonder if they're going to ignore that as a oopsie, or they're going to actually talk about it.
I would like to see them do something in the timeline and Doctor Strange pop up.
Right. Same here. And the Ancient One.
Surprisingly, the Doctor Strange movie was one of my favorite Marvel movies. I already told you that when we went to go see it. I was actually surprised how good it was.
Yeah, I can't wait for the second one when they get even weirder, because Doctor Strange can get a lot weirder than that. And the weirder he gets, the better it is.
Yeah, me. I like all these strange type movies. It's strange.
But no, but yeah, that was my thoughts on episode 2. So audience, whoever watches this, leave your comments. If you catch it on the rewind, leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought of it. Mike and I both liked it. And we'll both be back next week to talk episode 3 with, of course, all spoilers, because that's how we do it here.
And also, if anybody got any good time traveling movies that y'all know of, let me know. I love watching these type of movies.
Yeah, put them in the comments. All right, so I want to thank everyone who showed up today. I know it's Father's Day. I already knew we weren't going to get a big live contingent today. Everybody's busy. But this will get watched in the rewind. Last week, our episode did really well. I was super happy with it. And that's all we got for you today, guys. Mike, you want to say goodbye to everyone?
You know I'm weird. Bye, everybody. Have a great Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Enjoy.
And until next time, guys, keep it casual. Awkward ending. Here we go.